You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Our guest on the program today is Paige Olson, founder of Innovative Play for Kids, LLC, and a founding expert in CCFL Global Academy. For the past 20 years, Paige has successfully used her enthusiasm for exploration, discovery, and innovative play with hundreds of children in many different settings, from a natural horsemanship school for kids. She created the curriculum, was head instructor, to adapting the Cub Scouting curriculum to work for families in 3 different packs, as well as many other community groups and events. Paige Olson with us on This Week in America. Hi, Paige. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on the program. And I want to go back and we're going to talk about dangerous play and how we can get kids really active on the program today. Let's start by talking about your background. As I'm reading, as a young child, you grew up in a home without a television. And I would say, geez, I'm sorry to hear that. And you would say, we didn't need a television. Talk about growing up and the impact that had on you, growing up where you didn't have a television to rely on.
Well, I grew up in the 60s and with 3 brothers. We were all born within, I think the youngest brother was born just after the oldest brother turned 4. So we really were all playmates. And we had indoors, outdoors, not a lot of money, but just a lot of ability and permission to explore and discover and play. That was what was really important. We did have a record player and we did listen to stories. Back then, of course, there were no DVDs or books on tape, but through the record player, we got that books on tape kind of thing. So, imagination. It was great.
I was going to say, and that really sparks imagination because you're hearing words, but mentally you're putting pictures with those words, unlike on television where we see everything there and it's laid out for us. Now you get to use your imagination. And when you started raising your family, you said that one of the questions that you really ask is who I am and who they are. And that sort of really developed your philosophy for raising children.
It really did. I mean, a large part of that came as my experiences growing up, not knowing growing up that I struggled with dyslexia, having the school system be very difficult for me. High school was a little different because I did go to a private school, and so the way they taught was a little different. But for the most part, I just really felt misunderstood. And so that became kind of my mantra for my children. When they were born, I really wanted to know who they were. And I thought it was really important to try and help them figure that out. I didn't want them to experience what I had experienced growing up. And so I did. They can't ask themselves, so I owned that question for them until they got old enough to be able to do it.
What's interesting, and you talk about the fact that sometimes we almost become like lazy parents, relying on things to babysit our children, and what's easy, what works best for us and fits into our lifestyle. As you were raising your children, you relied a lot on reading, and these were actual books that your children were reading, adventures and trips, and even finding old boxes, which it's amazing the kind of fun you can have and the creativity you can express by grabbing an old box and playing with it.
Well, we grabbed anything. Children's brains aren't like adult brains. They don't keep a thought for very long, and they're not real lineal. They hop around and they jump around. And so having things like boxes and hot water pipe insulation tubes and rocks and sticks and mud allows their brain that free flowing. We went to visit a friend in Montana when my kids were, barely 2 and 3.5. And I have a cute video. They're underneath his porch playing under the ground construction workers with little to nothing. They found a rope and they found a trowel and they found some old pipe, plastic pipe. And they keep repeating themselves because children's brains, they need to. But as they play, you hear them say, all of a sudden, my daughter talks about horses. I got the horse. But then she goes right back to being a construction worker. And my son all of a sudden talks about firefighting and then right back to being a construction worker. And that's just a classic example about how their brains flip-flop as they're processing and discovering and playing with different things.
Our guest on This Week in America is Paige Olson. Olson is Olson, Paige, Page. Her website is very simple, paige-olson.com. You can log on to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Paige's website and get information. She is an innovative play expert. The website is excellent, and you've got a video there that you share with people, a webinar, Dangerous Play Webinar. And let's talk about that, because as soon as you mention dangerous play, people are thinking, okay, that's something we really want our children to avoid. That nothing good is going to come out of that. And you really feel that dangerous play is something that could be very instrumental in a positive way.
I really do. I mean, there's risk-taking behaviors and there's dangerous activities. And if we say no, a lot of times all we're doing is even putting off the inevitable that they're going to experiment with it someday, or they're going to do something stupid because they've never had an opportunity to learn to judge what they're doing, or they're going to cause somebody else a lot of harm. I know there's a tremendous amount of fear to allowing your child to be injured in this day and age. Fear that you take them to the doctor, they're going to report them to CPS and so forth and so on. I get that. But we have to get through that and over that and realize that injuries to the elbows and the forearms and the knees and the feet and the shins, those are places that you normally are going to injure when you're out there playing, slipping and sliding and stuff like that. And that shouldn't be a problem.
Talk about curiosity. And I know in raising our children, when you said something was no, in fact, the stronger you were, the more adamant in saying it's no, the more they really felt they needed to explore that and find out for themselves. Is there a natural curiosity we just have to admit is there and deal with it?
Well, think about it. We are born curious creatures. How many times do you know of a mom or a dad who's picked up for the 300th time some object that a child dropped when they're sitting in their high chair at dinner time, and they've got scowls and frowns and they're frustrated, and then the child is learning about gravity. They don't know what it is, but they're curious. In the beginning, they drop it. They don't know where it went. Then they start learning that they drop it. It goes on the floor. It's a game, but it's a learning process. They're curious. We are naturally curious beings. Some of us more high energy in our curiosity, some of us more low energy in our curiosity, but we are naturally curious. And so going out there in the rain, in the mud, with the rocks and the sticks and the downed wood and all that kind of stuff, it's really important for us to engage in that too, because our brains are asking questions.
Paige Olson, our guest on This Week in America. Her website is very simple, Paige, Page, Olson, and Olson is Olson. Our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We'll link on directly to her website. She is a innovative play expert. A lot of great video, a lot of great information there. The webinar that you can sample as well, and information on how you can get a hold of Paige and actually work with her. You had a situation where you allowed your 6-year-old to play with fire. Talk about why you did that and what the results were.
Okay. First of all, the word play is a real sketchy word. We experimented and we engaged with fire, but that really started back when he was 3 years old. He had, and I think a lot of kids, we have fire safety. Kids are curious in this thing when you strike it against something and there's fire. They don't understand how dangerous it is, because all they know is you strike this thing and you light the birthday candles on the birthday cake, and hey, they get blown out and everything's safe. We may hold the hair back, we may do some things, but they don't understand those things. So there's a curiosity there. So starting at the age of 3, we, instead of saying, no, what we said is, okay, you're curious in this. This has to be done with a parent, engaged with a parent. We're going to ask the questions. You ask the questions. We're going to help you discover the answers. And we're going to do it, and we're going to schedule a time to do it. And we had a calendar on the refrigerator where they could put a picture that said fire. And that was what the main activity was for that morning or afternoon. And we just scheduled it. And we began by what happens to hair. And I mean, we cut it, but what happens to hair and what happens to sticks and what happens to rocks. And we just started experimenting with a bunch of different things. By the time he was 10, well, actually 6, we did live where we could have campfires, cooking fires. We had a wood stove. And so we had done enough experimenting that he was ready to try and light one himself, leaning over a log, making it safe. We talked about how do you start a fire? How do you engage in this activity? And he was able to light the match and start the fire. Was he scared when that fire started on the end of that stick? Yeah, it scared him, but we had made it safe. And he already knew fire safety. He knew before he could do that activity that he needed the hose, he needed the blanket, he needed the shovel. He prepared the site, he watered down everything around it, and then he got that privilege. And it is a privilege, but it's a privilege that is earned through growth, through listening, through engaging, and through guidance of a mentor or a parent or something like that. And it's really important. I mean, in his case, he did happen to go on to become a firefighter. But still, not everybody that is curious in our matches go on to do that. But that curiosity really needs to be honored and engaged with.
Is it difficult?
Because it's not going to go away. They're just going to do something stupid when they get older.
Well, yeah, and I guess it's better to find out stupid for themselves, especially in a supervised atmosphere, rather than finding out later when you have no idea what the consequences are going to be and you're not really there to protect them. Is it difficult to balance safety along with the child's exploration?
Run that by me again. It's a difficult to what?
Yeah, balance safety and putting the safety measures in place that you did with the child when he was able to start the fire with your supervision, and balance that with their normal exploration desires.
I think it's much easier to balance that when they're young. I really do. I mean, yes, kids go through this serpentine ebb and flow of being easier to deal with and less easier when their brains are in the different stages of development, being in equilibrium and disequilibrium. But if you connect with them, you engage with them, you allow them to do things, but you provide boundaries, safety rules that are never, ever overstepped. They are designated as safety rules, but now they're things that grow with them. Then they start to understand that when their brain, it's nothing against them personally, but when their brain is mature enough or when they show certain skills that this next step will in fact happen, then they strive and they reach. And then they also understand that there are certain safety rules that I don't care who it is, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, doesn't matter, that are not overstepped. And if they see those things over and over and over again, they understand it's not against them, it's nothing personal. And so it gives them something to strive and reach to and reach for. At the same time, to allow them to step on a log and slip, or step on rocks and slip, or pick up a stick and do something with it. You have to find, you, the parent, have to find this zone where they may slip and fall down, but it's not off cliff.
Our guest on This Week in America is Paige Olson. Her website is paige-olson.com. She is on a program talking about dangerous play, and she's an innovative play expert. And if you go to the website, you'll find a lot of great information. Paige works with a number of families around the country and rapidly running out of time. We'll have her back for more programs on This Week in America. And, of course, our website, thisweekinamerica.us, will have more information. Is something missing in the child's lives now, children that are growing up, that unstructured playtime? It seems like we have to feel like they got a social calendar, just an activities calendar, just like we do. We need to keep it filled up, or we feel we're not being good parents. Talk about that, the impact, or the lack of having that unstructured playtime.
And I don't know how we got here. I really don't. We've gone from the Native Americans and all of the older societies from years ago. Those children engaged in play activities, but they were along the lines of the skills that they needed to be able to succeed and to survive as an adult. Yet they played. Play was their work. And we've moved through all these different genres of, then we became where you needed to, when you were born, you were expected to take up and do what your parents did, or depending upon your birth order or whatever. And we in my lifetime, in the last 50 plus years, have gone from engaging with our children to entertaining our children. I can't tell you how many times in the last 6 months I've had parents say, I don't know how to entertain my child. It's not our job to entertain our children. It's our job to engage with them in activities to help them discover who they are and what they're interested in. And part of that is this risky play. They get to understand, what they like, how steady they are on their feet, whether that's a good idea. It's such a huge opportunity for growth for them. And we've taken that away by putting them in parent-led, parent-structured, parent this, parent that activities where the children are now being told what we, the parents, want them to learn. And they have no clue who they are. They just know that if I do this, that's what the adults want me to do, and the adults will be happy. And it's not about them being happy or engaged. Where on the other hand, if we provide them an opportunity in an unstructured environment, child-led activities where maybe we're kind of around the perimeter watching to stop behaviors before they get out of control, or mentor safety and that kind of stuff, what the child is learning is, who am I? What do I like to do? What am I interested in? How do things work for me? And that is so critical. We need kids to grow up to have an idea of who they are, not leave school going, I don't know how to learn. They gave me this special whatever, and now I'm lost. I've seen that so many times. I don't know what I'm interested in. I don't know whatever. And they're kind of falling apart because they have no clue, because we have overstructured them in situations where they've never gotten an idea of how they function in this thing we call society. Where do they fit in as part of this team?
Our guest on This Week in America is Paige Olson, innovative play expert. Her website is very simple, Paige, PAGE-Olson.com, and Olson is OLSON. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Just a couple minutes left in the program, and if you go to the website, you'll find a lot of great information there and find out how to contact Paige as well. You talk about hand-brain connection and how important that is. Again, we're rapidly running out of time, but how important is that? Is that something that we're missing now?
It really is. And really quickly, there's this great book by Dr. Stuart Brown called Play. And to make this really, really quick, he has a great story in there to illustrate how important this hand-brain connection is. And the hand-brain connection is not playing computer games all the time. The hand-brain connection that he's talking about is the building the soapbox derbies and the tree houses and taking things apart and building other things and things like that. And it came from Jet Propulsion Labs. And those are the labs, our Mars lunar landers and all that were developed at. And the engineers that were hired back in the 60s. And so were able to do this incredible work. They could take theory and they could put it to practice, because they could take theory and tear it apart and turn it around and start from scratch and do stuff like save the astronauts in the Apollo 13 from stuff that was there. But they found when those guys started retiring in the late 1990s and they hired new cream of the crop engineers from the Ivy League schools, the smartest students, those engineers were not able to do the critical thing, which was take theory and turn it into practical use. And they wanted to understand why. So they went on this journey of discovery, and they actually ended up interfacing with race car people who had discovered the same problem. And what they found out is that these engineers that were unable to do the job simply never played with their hands, building and tearing things apart, tinkering and things when they were young, under 10, the young kids. And so they actually drew up their job requirements. And so it became part of the background check, if you will, was, did you play with your hands as a child? Because if they didn't, the ability to do that engineering job didn't exist. And now with all this new technology and the incredible stuff that's out there that we haven't even touched, just barely touched the top of the iceberg of everything that's possible. We need tinkerers and inventors and people that can take stuff and tear it apart and turn it around and make it into something else to benefit all the different members of society.
A fascinating discussion, and Paige will be back with us. Our guest has been Paige Olson. That's Pageolson. The website is page-olson.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and log on directly to Paige's website. A lot of great information there. Information available on how to contact Paige. And as you heard in the discussion, she works with a number of families in dealing with the dangerous play and all of the activities that we talked about on the program. And she will be back with us. Paige, great to have you with us on the show. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to having you back with us.
Thank you, Rick. I look forward to being back.
You're listening to This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us.